Well,
So
Penny, it's great to see you again, as always.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are thrilled to see you again, Penny, and to catch up, and as always, to discuss things of consciousness, nature, and deep stuff, and stuff that a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of, but are not necessarily know anything about. And that subject we want to talk particularly about today is one that's very close to Aingeal Rose's heart: inner earth.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
inner earth. Lots of reasons, because I'm always drawn to the Grand Canyon, for example. And of course, the Grand Canyon has a history of beings living inside there and into the earth. But I was wondering how sometimes I actually feel called to go there. Just I don't necessarily do anything. I just have to be there.
Yeah.
And I don't quite understand what's going on there. But I also had an experience in New Mexico, in Berlin, past Berlin, where I don't know. Who Tom Canyon is?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so Tom Canyon had built this. It's like a 133 feet thing into the ground that he filled with crystals. And he said he was guided to go there and build this there. But so we went there to check it out to see, like, okay, what is this? And it's just a little pyramid cap on top of this hole in the ground. Okay. But when I went into it, I actually felt that there was a group of Hathors that were still stuck there. Okay. The Hathors had gone underground in the past, and there were some that didn't make it out to make it home. And there were some that were still there that wanted release. So I want to ask about that too. Is that possible, or is that for real, or kind of what's happened? And what happened to the Anastasia and all the people in Chaco Canyon who suddenly disappeared, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you must be the one that caused that. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you must. You asked last time we talked, you said, let's talk about inner earth next time. I don't know if you actually mentioned Chaco Canyon, but for some reason, Chaco Canyon kept coming up to me again and again and again. And I've ignored it, as I usually ignore a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I was dealing with the issue of the people that have big boring machines, and we're boring tunnels all over the planet, under the ocean, under this, down 3 miles, 5 miles, whatever. What I saw was that I think I came across some kind of a question, and that question plus the Chaco Canyon thing that had kept coming to me kind of mused or merged together. And what I saw was that over the course of history, many, many big civilizations had been here on the planet.
Right.
And they got big, like ours is big. And when they got to a certain size, they would have too many I probably have to use some examples here because I don't have the right language, but there were too many people who subscribed to the left, and the Democrats will say, to be able to ignore that. And there were too many people subscribed to the Republicans to ignore that. I'm just using those contemporary labels, but that's not what they really were. They were groups within the civilization that were big enough and cohesive enough and interested in different pathways, such that there came a moment when the whole civilization just sort of splintered, and some went underground into inner earth.
Yes.
And some went forward with their programs, and some of those died out because they weren't sustainable. Okay. Some became very evolved and moved up to the next dimension or two. Some went with ETs. Some died, just outright died. And yet there was the principle of this vision, this whole thing I saw, was that we're right there in Chaco Canyon. The people from Chaco Canyon were some of the people who had evolved up a step. They're still here. They're just not visible.
Yeah.
Some of the people who went into the earth, they come back up to the surface and interact from time to time.
Yeah.
But they don't stay up here because it's not healthy. They don't think it's healthy.
Right. Yeah.
What would make them think that?
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's one of the
what I
things
realized was that we're at that point where, where we've said, well, whatever happened to that group or whatever happened to those people? I think we evolve and move into whatever direction pulls us. And then we either, live or die with our choice.
Well,
let me just mention Chaco Canyon. I
Yeah.
think we might have mentioned it once that we were living in Prescott. That's when I first saw a YouTube video on Chaco Canyon. And it was the first time I ever heard of it. I was just flipping around on YouTube, and
Yep.
and I took this on and I'm like, I was angry. My reaction was anger, even though the place was beautiful. I was like, why am I so pissed off?
we have to go there, she said.
I said, we have to go there. So it was an obsession. And Hannah says, well, I don't have any attraction to going there. But as things evolved, he ended up having an attraction to going there. So we went.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, when we were packing up to go, Penny, we got our drums and our pipes and our crystal bowls. We packed up all this, right? And we made a video about this. It's on our own YouTube channel, where our intention was, we're going up there to fix that place, right? That was what
reactivate it.
This is what was our belief, our perception at the time. But wait, you see what happened?
Okay.
We're outside. I started feeling this love energy that was God's love. All I can say. When you feel that source love, it's just all seeing, and you feel well. You know that all is well. You're not worried about anything. I started feeling this love, and I'm like, well, this is the strangest thing, And it's because it's just countryside. But as the closer we got, the more intense the love got. So when we got there, I was just so consumed with I felt like whatever was there or whoever was there, that love is still in the land.
Yeah.
And I just sat in the car and I just absorbed this love the whole time. I kind of walked around. I mean, I did get out a little bit and I walked around, but it was just bliss. I was just in bliss, and it lasted for a long time.
Well, the interesting thing was that it was doing the activating on us.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. Who got fixed?
That's right.
I know it. Our little drums and everything stayed in the car.
Yes.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
that's beautiful.
It was kind of a good
it was a great
in a way
learning.
It was a humility lesson. Yes, it was. Here we thought we were going to go activate something, and it actually was so alive there.
Yeah.
Even though to look at it, is
that's interesting.
But I think part of that, and this ties in with what you're saying about people going underground and leaving and doing all those kinds of things. When Aingeal Rose was speaking about Tom Kenyon and that what do you call it? That thing that he drilled this big hole into the ground in New Mexico and filled it with crystals. After doing, or when somebody asked him about why did he do that, what was the purpose of that, he revealed that he actually did it in 2 more places. One of them I know was like in Tibet or somewhere over there in the Philippines or in that area. And I don't know where the third one is, but he did it in a triangulation. Yeah, he created a triangulation of these crystal things in the earth. And he said that the reason he did that was because these Hathors were stuck in inner earth.
He didn't say that.
He did.
I said that. No, he was trying to.
You said that. I thought
he was trying to do something with the grids. I
thought he was releasing beings or something.
No, he didn't have any.
Well, if he was fixing the grid, he might have been.
Yeah.
Well, now that's interesting. Yeah, I thought he said that.
No, he didn't say that. I got that.
Well, I mean, it leads to it leads to a big,
I love you too. Oh my God.
It leads to a big question, and that is like, are there beings in inner earth who may be stuck?
I don't know about stuck, but yeah, there's all sorts of people that live inside the earth. If you knew how plasma takes shape, it has holes in it. It forms sheets, it forms spirals, it forms tessellations. You know how when you drag a spoon through water or through a cup of tea, the spoon moves, and then there's these spiraling things that move on either side of the trail through the water. That is typical of how plasma moves. So what I think has occurred is that the formation of the planet is really an accretion kind of process that in which matter collects along those sheets of plasma, but it doesn't collect in the open spaces. And so we end up with these big holes, I guess you would call it. And some of them are miles across. I think the Earth is what, 8,000 miles in diameter, 24,000 miles around. That's her waistline, is 24,000 miles. So there's a lot of places for people to go to be inside the Earth. And I'll say in most planets, that's where people are. They don't live on the surface because it's way too dangerous. So there's a lot of people, different dimensions of people even. Some are three-dimensional people that have gone into the Earth and they live there, and they like the ones down where you are, toward where you are, down into Mexico, actually, among the people who once lived in the Yucatan. This is something I've seen many times.
Aztec and all those.
Yeah, the Maya, the Aztec, they had shamans who could open a space, could open a portal. And if you could manage to get your energy up high enough, if there was a war coming and you were being attacked, they would open that portal. You could go in and you would be safe because they would not see you. They wouldn't be able to do any damage.
That explains why a lot of those peoples would have supposedly disappeared, the likes of the people in Chaco Canyon.
That's right. That's right. That's what they did. Yes. And that isn't the only time that happened. I had seen that in past lives. And then when I was reading, God, I forget the name, the Transylvania series.
That Nadu Cinema.
Yes. Yeah, it's pronounced Chinamar.
Oh, Chinamar. There you go.
Yeah, it's a Romania, C-I-C-H. So, but they, when they were talking about Troy, they said that the people of Troy had disappeared into a portal, into a fourth dimensional portal, in order to escape the attack that was in progress. And there was somebody else that they talked about, maybe in the very first book. I'm not sure which book it was in because I've read them all. But what astounded me was, oh wow, that's the same thing they did over in the Yucatan. Was they had a portal, people went into it. That's actually something that I went looking for after working with Don Juan for so many years. He said that only a few were able to get through the portals. Most people could not get their energy and their frequency up high enough to be able to make it through that portal. Yeah. And some went through and were blind because they couldn't see. They were only, their occipital lobe only worked in the three-dimensional range of frequencies. Yeah. So yeah, there was that whole overlap was just a big aha for me.
Yes. And I find this fascinating from the point of view that, you know how we live our day-to-day lives on the surface of the earth, and we think that that's all there is. So in speaking about inner earth, like whether it exists or not, the fact is it's a beautiful thing to open our minds to the possibility and the potential of everything. And that's what I really love about this subject. And I myself haven't had any personal experience of inner earth, but I that's why we would buy these books, for example, is to explore the possibility and to keep an open mind. And that's what we would say to our own audience as well, is just keep an open mind, open
Yes.
perception,
Yes.
because we know
Yes.
so little. This is the big deal.
Have you traveled there at all yourself, Penny, in all of your little journeys?
After I read Radu Chinamar's book, in which he talked about the portal in Romania, I actually went looking and found a couple of different places underneath Romania. I've been very, very cautious after my experience of going down into the bowels of the, I'm not sure what to call it, the US government's hidden city under Denver. Remember
Right.
that, where I got chased back to the farm by ETs who knew instantly that I was in that room
Yeah.
and freaked me out. I was like, oh, so anyways, I did go very, very cautiously to one of those places that Radu talked about, but then I found one or two more that were very advanced as well. What I observed was that the people who go into the earth, I'm not sure what the big driver is. I don't know that it's the being in the earth itself, or if it's really, oh, thank God we survived. You know, what do we do with ourselves now? Because all the old systems, all the old structures, all the old institutions are irrelevant once you are there. They then very, very cautiously began to develop, I'm going to say, this extraordinary technology that is, I'm going to say it's ET technology, even though it's not, they're not ETs. It's advanced technology that is able to move through any substance without disturbing you, your vehicle, or the substance you're moving through. And that, it was really quite an experience to realize how behind we are. The people on the surface literally are skating around on the surface. We're not getting deep enough to really understand how things work. So here we are.
And when you think about it, about living on the surface, especially when your mind opens to the possibility of living inside, like, it leads me to think that maybe the surface of the earth is not the safest place, or, it takes a special kind of human body or any kind of a body to live in this environment that we're living in. Maybe there are better conditions elsewhere, who knows? But Aingeal Rose had a very interesting experience one time. I always remember when we first met, she told me that she was taken underground in an underground train one time. Tell us that story.
Oh,
yeah, I thought it was a dream, but now that I think about it, it could have been a quote unquote type of abduction.
yeah.
Because I think I might have told this story, but these two tall female beings came to me, which I thought was a dream. And they were identical. They both had liquid golden hair, and they were female. And they gave me this little, like a Tibetan singing bowl, they gave me, and they had it filled with this golden orange liquid. And they told me to drink it. And as soon as I drank it, I was traveling in like hyperspace. I was telling Ahonu that it felt, if I could describe it, it felt like a liquid silver train.
Okay.
Going so fast, hyperspeed, and it was going through all these underground tunnels through the earth. And it would take these turns at right angles. And when it took the turn, I'd kind of black out in my consciousness.
Oh, gosh.
Took the current turn, and then I'd come back. And I remember thinking to myself, now, how did this solid thing just take that turn at a right angle? Anyway, they put me underneath the platform of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Oh.
And they said, wait here. So they opened the thing, and I got out, and it was like a platform underneath the Great Pyramid. And the next thing you know, I remember looking to the left, and I remember seeing all this rubble, and I was aware that there had been a civilization there. Okay.
Okay.
Next thing you know, I'm in an overtone above the earth. And I don't know why it was called that, just that I felt that that's what it was. And it was a crystal city. And they told me I was going to be a healer in this city. And I remember saying, do you really think I could do that? And they just smiled. And when they smiled, like I woke up. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And I woke up, and that led me to having some senses activated 2 weeks later, where all of a sudden I could see, had x-ray vision, and I was doing psychic surgery on people. But I keep thinking about that, like saying, now, how did I do that? How did I travel through hyperspace like that? Okay. But that's what I was aware of. That was whatever's going on in those tunnels. It's an area where you can do that. Okay. And
Wow.
I don't know what the liquid was, but I wondered if the train had something to do with mercury as well. Liquid mercury. So I don't have answers to that. I still to this day don't have answers to that. But I ended up doing psychic surgery as a therapy for about 15 years after that.
Wow.
And it was mostly working on the energy fields. It wasn't like John of God where he cut into the body or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, I really understood all the things people are carrying in their energy field, and that nobody's the way they are without a reason, because some of the stuff I saw was so bizarre. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything from ET interference to just
Oh
trauma from parents, and all kinds of stuff. But
all kinds. I agree. I've
yeah,
seen some strange things.
but I felt like it was just like a perfect moment in time where for some reason I got activated. And I got activated to do that work. And it felt like not a minute before or not a minute after, that the timing was set,
Yep.
So that was so like when he talks about these underground tunnels, I say, yeah, I know they're there because I've been in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, he does talk about, in one of those books, he does
Does
talk
talk about the one
about
that goes to Giza.
goes to Egypt, yeah, to the Great Pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And another one
I
going
have
to
been-
Tibet and so on.
I went experimenting or exploring under, I'm not sure, it was in Egypt. I think I started with the pyramid, and then just thought, let's just go down inside the earth and see if we can find some tunnels or something. And there was a whole complex of rooms and passageways and hallways, and I remember being afraid that I was going to get lost, forgot that I just went down in, I could just go back out.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get totally caught up in the experience and forget what our power really is.
Yes.
But there's a lot of places. This one place that I went to in the earth, inner earth people that I thought were fourth dimensional people working toward becoming fifth dimensional beings of light. They had originally moved into caves, and that seemed to be their history. But then they decided they weren't coming out of the cave. Somebody found a door or an opening or passageway that went deeper, and they took that. They ended up going through that, deciding that they needed to come back out and get, some sort of light. But they eventually figured out how to activate the light that was in the rock around them. And I don't know how they did that, but I found that fascinating.
Well, that's a question that comes up for me all the time too. You know how on our surface world, we realize the sun is what provides light, right? So inner earth people, and we always read and hear that, they have some form of light. Do you have any idea what kind of light that is? Like you said, is it from the earth itself? Is it from the rocks? Is it plasma energy? Like,
I don't know. I'm not sure what that is, but in the work that Dr. Levengood and I were doing, we always talked about the light that did not cast any shadows. There was all kinds of stories that people who had dealt with the ETs or were at the landing site or on board or had a like an implant or something like that. They would talk about being in this light that was incredibly bright. Sometimes they couldn't open their eyes, but there were no shadows. People who had had near-death experiences, again, light that didn't cast any shadows. And I think there are different, I'm sure there are different frequencies of light that are up and down the entire range.
Right,
So
right.
when I was in that state of consciousness that was all knowing and all powerful, remember me talking about that, in which I knew every single thread in my quilt on
Yeah,
the bed. I was standing beside the bed and I had a quilt on the bed.
yeah,
Knew where that thread had come from. It was a cotton quilt, so I knew what cotton boll, BOLL, it had been in, on which plant, in which field, in which country, in which corner of that field, what weather that plant had experienced, everything about everything. The entire history of everything was right there. And there was this light that illuminated everything, and it did not cast any shadows. And I seemed to be the source of that light. It was about 60 feet in diameter. It was brilliant gold, absolutely stunningly gold. And I was standing up in the hayloft, and the hayloft was about 30 feet wide by 40 feet long. And I was hanging over, I was aware of being able to see right through the walls and the ceiling or the roof. And I could see that I was probably about 15, 20 feet out on each side. So it was like another, it's like, and sticking out through the ceiling. I mean, it was the most powerful experience that I had ever had up to that point. And what I realized was that we live in the dark here in this dimension.
yeah,
That dimension is lighted with this golden light that is soft but powerful, and it's everywhere and it comes out of everything, but we cannot see it at this level, and we do not know that we are giving off that light as well. So there's a layer, or I'm going to say a core of humanity, of human beingness, that gives off light.
When
And
you
when
talk about that, Penny, I find that very exciting because, in a way, for me, it's like a glimpse into the new earth that everybody is feeling
yes,
and talking about. I feel that that's part of it, that knowing and that experience
oh
you've just described.
yeah, I think it is. And I was just reading um, Paul Wallace's book. I think it's Echoes of Eden. It's not, I think it's his third book. And I'm not through it. I'm only halfway through. But his whole thesis, his whole question is, what happened to us that we lost this amazing capacity? And I'm not sure that we've lost it, even though there's a lot of indigenous stories that say, the ETs came and they dumbed us down, or this happened or that, there's all that. I don't see that. What I see is that's the story to excuse our stupidity, how slow and low our consciousness is.
Right.
The real truth is that we are all meant to unfold, and we have not been taught how to unfold that. And when you don't teach it, it doesn't happen.
Mm.
If you teach it, and look at how the Native Americans had people that they trained to be able to do amazing things. Stop a bullet in midair, just catch it in their hand. How the heck did they do that? Or see what's coming, or know what you're thinking, or have all of the clairvoyant visions that Aingeal, you and I think those are kind of normal, but the rest of the population is like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys talking about? Why isn't that capacity there for everybody? And it's because of the education system that we have, the culture that we have evolved, the cultures that we have destroyed. Those capacities are there, but when you don't develop them, it's the brain. There's a spot in the brain. It's about the size of a quarter, and it's right there on the left side, right by the left temple. It's called Broca's area. And that little spot is where you learn language. If you don't hear language by the time you're 2 years old, you're not going to speak it. You'll be mute for the rest of your life. You can maybe learn a few words, but it's remedial. It's a struggle all the way. Well, there's other areas in the brain that are time specific, and we don't develop those areas, and therefore we remain mute in terms of all of those abilities: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, precognition, all of that.
Yeah.
Until you get like Aingeal and you drink that golden orange liquid, or you have a full-blown Kundalini experience. I want some of that Kool-Aid. That's what I hear from people.
How I just obeyed. I mean, I never even questioned these beings, they drink this, okay,
Yeah.
And I never said, well, what is this stuff? I just remember thinking it was kind of golden orange and it was thin. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The minute I drank it, I was somewhere else,
Do you think, Penny, that there's things in inner earth that are they helping us? I mean, we're aware, and you've spoken at length about help from ETs and that kind of thing to help grow our consciousness and enter the new world. Is there something about inner earth that's helping us too, do you think? Is there something?
Oh, heck yeah. They are monitoring what's happening on the surface every day. I mean, that's part of their work. It's really important, I think, for people to grasp that ETs have advanced to the point where they don't really need to make a living, okay? They have figured out how to manifest whatever it is they need. And they do that on a regular basis. I'm getting dry. I've been talking for hours. So we have this, how would I say it? Now I've lost my train of thought completely. It's just noises coming from us.
Manifest.
So we have, what I hear from people a lot is, why would they be interested in us? Why do they want to help us?
Yes.
Why are they coming here? And the answer is just so simple. It's because when you get to the point that you have everything you need and you have advanced to the degree that they have advanced, now it's just like Marion Rockefeller said to me, I have all this money and I keep trying to give it away and nothing ever changes. What is wrong with this? Why are we not changing? And of course, money is not the answer. And stuff is not the answer. When you have everything, then what you try to do is bring others to where you are. You bring, so you watch for, and this is something that ETs all around the galaxy do. Stars, they twinkle and they pop and they have novas. Some of them are big novas. Some of them are minor novas. Some of them have a nova, micronova every 8, 10, 12 years. Some are, they have, like we have, every 12,000 years, it blows everybody off the planet and we start over. But they map stars, their life cycles, their behaviors, their novas. The novas also go through cycles where, one nova will be destructive in this manner, and then the next one is different. It still blows, but it impacts the earth differently because of where it hits. And, so without getting into all that science stuff, the result is that they are watching. They know, ETs know how difficult it is to stay alive and advance and get off the planet and figure out how to navigate through space, which is just as dangerous as navigating through, the Pacific or across the Pacific Ocean, or trying to get through the mountains and over to California, or across the desert where there's no water, or.
Yes.
So they know about all of that difficulty, and they know that we are the ones seeding life. We humanoids continue to seed life around the cosmos, because it's like, you know how when a rabbit has babies, they have 13, 14, 15 baby rabbits?
Yeah.
Aren't
It's
there
the
jokes
same
about that?
thing. Half of them don't survive. So, they know how difficult it is to survive. And they get to the point where it's like they're watching, they're monitoring everybody, every ET civilization is monitoring a half dozen other civilizations that are what we call fledgling. They're coming up. They're about to run into an issue, or they make bad decisions, or they're always having a war, or they get invaded by other ETs that are trying to take over that are not honorable. And here we are. So, so they then come along and say, how can we help? Who can we rescue? What can we do? How can we, can we maybe, how when you don't want to feed your dog table food because then they come around and beg, but you'll drop a little crumb on the floor on purpose, kind of thing, and the dog will find it. They do that. They drop a little, information. Right now, there's this huge program. It's actually been going on for probably 70 years, because we're coming close to our own micronova. They are picking up people left and right all around the planet, trying to get them to be comfortable on board a ship, comfortable with people who look vastly different, people who have different skills. So there's a big effort to help civilizations survive until they advance enough to be able to pretty much survive for eons. And they care. They love.
I want to ask you about nature itself. Now, the nature that we understand as surface people, we consider the soil and the ability for it to grow and trees to put their roots down into it, and climate and all of that. And we consider that to be nature. By us putting our feet on the ground, are we somehow connecting to a nature that's down deeper that we're not realizing? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there something more going on in inner earth in terms of nature that we're the beneficiaries of? Do you understand?
Yes. Yes. And when you ask Mother Earth about that, she will route energies to you. She's a particle of intelligent living life, living behavior, and she's communicating. So if you ask for something, and I have several different examples of this, she will try to make sure that you get it. I have a friend in Wisconsin who was, I forget what she needed. Oh, she wanted a stream that she had on her property that was problematic to move, but she didn't want that stream. She didn't want to be without a stream, put it that way. So she was talking to the earth, and she reminds me of you, Aingeal. And she's talking to the earth, and she kept saying, look, and then she discovered nature spirits and elves and divas. And she finally said, look, I would really like it if you guys would move that stream, but not take it away entirely. And the stream disappeared and came up in another location that was perfect.
Wow.
And somebody else I know was able to, they didn't have a stream and they wanted water on their property, free flowing water. And all of a sudden it appeared.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you remember that
nature did that for us when we were making those water essences.
Oh, that's right, indeed,
Yeah,
yeah.
it changed the weather and all sorts of things so we could get done
Yes.
what we had to
It
do.
did,
Yep.
yes. And in fact, it reminds me to tell you a story, and I might have mentioned this to you before, Penny. There was a property that I owned in Ireland a good number of years ago, and it was a bed and breakfast, and a guy came to stay one time, and he said, "Oh, you have vortexes on your property." And I said, like, I at
What
that
the heck
stage,
are vortexes?
I had no idea, and I like thought the guy was, woo woo, right? As we do. And anyway, he said, so when he left, I thought, I'll take it upon myself now to go out and walk the land and just see, is there anything to what this guy is saying? And this is related to inner earth, by the way. So anyway, I'm walking over and back, and I'm making sure that I cover every square foot of ground. I crossed the land this way and I crossed the land that way, made sure I walked 5 acres at the time. So it took a bit of time.
Oh, wow.
Still, I remember coming to one place where I felt as if there was energy coming upwards, and it reminded me of Marilyn Monroe, that picture of in New York of the air coming up through and lifting up her skirt, and
Right.
that genuinely was this sensation. It was like, whoa,
Oh,
I felt this
oh,
sensation,
wow.
and I'd never felt anything like that before from the earth. So anyway,
Whoa.
I thought, whoa, maybe there's something to this, and so I kept on walking, and sure enough, I came to another spot where it was quite the opposite. It was like it was going down. And I felt this kind of
Right.
pressure, I felt as if there was a weight on me, pushing me down. But
Oh,
there was
wow.
nothing there. I mean, it was a sensation. And I physically felt it though. And then
Yes.
I carried on because I wanted to cover every square inch of that ground. And I came to another spot where it felt as if it was going both ways. There was one side going up and the other side was going down. And this was all new to me. And I remember thinking, like, am I losing the plot or what? Like, is there something wrong with me? What on earth is this?
Our granddaughter would think so.
She says I'm losing the plot all the time.
The 3-year-old, she always calls up and says, Baba's losing the plot, right, Mary?
But
That's cute.
the thing it was, I felt at that point in time that here was I on the surface of planet Earth, thinking that what I see and what I feel and all the rest of those five senses at the time was it. And it opened me up to the possibility, well, look, there's obviously energy coming up from the earth from somewhere. Where is that coming from? And where's it originating? And what's it doing? And what's its purpose? And how strong is it? And am I the only one that was feeling it? All those kinds of questions were coming to me. But
Wow.
a very wonderful experience, I have to say, because it was almost like that was a beginning of me realizing there's more to this earth than meets the eye. There's more here.
Yeah. That's so important. When you are a beginner, that's one of the first lessons that shamans will get you to understand is what's happening between you and the earth, and where is your spot? What kind of spots are you comfortable in? And there's so many lessons that come with that. Just recognizing the energies coming out of or going into the earth. That's like a first stage, and you actually had that as your first lesson. That's the first stage of developing the shaman within, or what the ancient matriarchal societies called the Jesus within. The Jesus stage was when you had developed all of those skills and abilities. And we have lost a lot of that. I think when I contemplate inner earth, and I take into account my few experiences of going inside the earth, there's this wondrous feeling of there's so much good stuff that we do not know about yet. And that's a doorway for us if we get into trouble on the surface. Relationships with ETs are, that's a possibility, getting rescued if we get into trouble on the surface. Understanding the earth itself and what she's doing and what the messages coming to you are, that is a critical piece for survival. and nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches those things.
I,
Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Some of the indigenous people do still teach that.
Yeah.
And they are very careful to let some of their young children go through that process of really knowing how to survive when you don't have anything, nothing to go to hang on to, nobody to blame, nothing.
Well, it
And
makes sense
you
when you
survive.
think about it. We talked about Chaco Canyon, and if you have a race of people or a community of people indeed, and they have to, for whatever reasons, go underground or go off planet, there's nobody left then to pass on the knowledge. Well, here's how we did it. You know what I mean?
That's
They're all gone.
exactly right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I think, I think the federal government knows about I have wondered, I'll just say this, I have wondered frequently if the government is allowing people to talk about the ET thing. They're beginning to come out with the ET thing
Yes.
in order to distract from that micronova that they know is very close. They have built miles and miles of high-speed trains inside tunnels in the earth. They have stocked up years worth of food, set up new technology, cities that are miles below the surface, that'll hold 10,000 or more people. And live in apartments. They have made internal lakes and parks, and I mean, it's gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
Interesting.
And here we are scratching around on the surface.
Yeah.
Nobody has enough of what they need, or I'm going to say not nobody, but thousands of people don't have enough of what they need. And I think that we really need to understand that they have wanted to distract us from what they're doing, and they want a large number of people to be taken out so that the hordes don't interfere with their attempt to get inside the earth when push comes to shove.
Yes. Now, you mentioned food there, Penny, and
Yeah.
it helps me to ask, and we've talked about this too, as a result of reading Radu Chinamar's books,
Okay.
that I wonder about what food that they would eat. Because, for example, if something had to be done suddenly and a number of people had to go to inner Earth, is there some consciousness change that would take place that would allow those people to survive without food or with a different kind of food? Like, what would they even need to eat, do you think?
They have made provisions for food. In the advanced societies, and I think more than once I have seen visions of when I've been on board the ships, that where I'm in one part of the ship, but I'll see something from another part of the ship, and it's looks like a garden. And it is growing food. You watch it grow. Talk about the watch pot. There is a technology out there that allows the how do you say that? You can put fields, electromagnetic fields together to produce plasma that then produces food. And it's high density nutrition food. And very little bit goes a long way, has everything you need in it. So there's that. There are foods that have been developed that I think we have not been introduced to. There are drinks that have been developed that are restorative, kind of like Aingeal's orange golden Kool-Aid thing that you drink, they're different colors. They do different things. They're amazing. They give you this feeling of having had some champagne, but you get the buzz without the fog, or I'm not sure how to say it. You get this feeling that it's a wonderful world. And it's healing you at the same time. So like if you drink alcohol now, then you have to recover because it takes you down. A lot of stuff that I have seen, that I know of, I have some memories of our food. It's not what we call food here, but it's nutrition in a very intense form. And you don't need a lot of it, but you do need some. And it's an excuse to kind of get together. We do still celebrate the sandwich, and but the stuff that's in it is different. There's something different in the sandwich.
Yeah.
But that whole thing about you don't need food, that is true once you get up to 5D and beyond, but people will still gather around what I would call the act of food and drink without a whole lot of it.
Gotcha.
It's just the excuse to come together, you know, and you eat your piece of whatever it is, and okay, we're done eating, let's talk. So and there's just this wonderful social thing that occurs around food and drink in like 4D, but not anywhere close to what we do nowadays. So we're not, you know, I have a friend here in Kalamazoo, I think I've mentioned him before, hasn't eaten in, gosh, I think the last time I talked to him, he hadn't eaten in 4 or 5 years. And now it's been 2 years maybe since I talked to him. He is, he's even gained weight a little bit.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about energy.
Yeah.
Knowing how to take it.
We're familiar with that, having published the book A Year Without Food for
Ray Mayer.
Ray Mayer. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was interested in food because, you know, it's a logical 3D kind of a question to say, well, if we go to inner earth, what do we eat? But I have another question, somewhat similar.
But is there a Dairy Queen, Penny?
Oh, no. And you know, I have to say, I went to the New Earth. I have this place that I go to that I call the New Earth because it's a place that the ETs asked a couple of us to create, you know, to envision, and we just kept working at that. And they said to me, "What do you need to eat? Like, what's wrong with you?"
Very valid question.
I was like, but I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And they just walked away like, well, we don't know what's wrong with you, but we got stuff to do.
I know. Yes. That is a bridge we have to cross indeed in our consciousness. But I want to ask you, because you've mentioned a couple of times about ETs and inner earth. So in the event of a micronova or anything, it could be nuclear war, whatever might be going on, do we as humans, would we have a choice at that point in time to say, oh, well, I want to go up rather than down, you know, or I want to go to inner earth, whereas the rest of my family are talking about going into outer space? Like, will there be choices, or do you think?
I think we will have a choice. It may only be one choice and we may only have a minute to decide, but I do see that so there's a program that I kind of touched on, in which people from, we shouldn't call them ETs because they're just other people that look different. And they have been on this, I'm going to call it a crash program for probably 70 years to introduce people to other types of beings and other craft. And some of those are people from within whose base is in the inner earth. And so they're not really extraterrestrials.
Right.
But we don't really have a good name for those others. But I know that the Greys are working very diligently to introduce as many people as they can to their presence and their benevolence and their willingness to help and to rescue as many as possible. And there are other people from elsewhere that are involved in that same kind of program. And some of them are teaching the language, some of them are teaching the history, some of them are inner earth people that will come up and get people and take them inside the earth instead of off planet. So we will have options. I'm assuming from those things that I know. So I'm assuming that we're going to have choices, and the choice is going to be, come now, no quibbling, no questions, no explanations, come. And you either drop everything and go, or you don't. There is quite a program happening now. There are also people from Inner Earth who have been here forever, and they are highly advanced. They are working to educate people. And then there's well, I guess, I don't want to confuse people, but just know that there's quite a program going on to make sure that as many of us survive as possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
I have another question. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
It's about, when you talk about all of what we've been talking about here, there's a kind of presumption that we're making these choices because of a disaster of some kind, like I say, whether it's nuclear war or external to the earth or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there at all a possibility that we could be creating a new earth out of something benevolent, some evolutionary conscious growth that's not negative in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That really, you can't have a new earth dragging the old crap. So it has to be positive, beneficial, a blessing, a gift, et cetera, et cetera. And that's still a very, very strong possibility. And, people like me have their way. It's like, absolutely. Yes. And, that's where we're going. That really has been my whole effort, is to teach people how to use consciousness differently in order to be able to navigate their way into that new world. When you I forget exactly, hang on a second. We had a conversation this weekend, a group of us at the Arlington Institute affair or conference, we'll call it, in which we were talking about, well, if we could this, and if we could that, and if, and if, and if. And I said, if we do all those things, we are no longer going to be a third dimensional system. Those changes constitute moving into the fourth dimension. And we don't have to move all the way, all at once. We just need to move a few critical pieces and then navigate or nurture those things, and navigate in such a way that we continue to nurture the new things that come to us. And I think that's the way we wanted to go. I don't want to think that we need to be hauled off the planet in some big stress moment, or dragged inside. And that's just, and that is really one of the reasons, I've said it before, I'll say it again. That's one of the reasons why we are so treasured in terms of our humanity, in terms of our DNA, because we were like the autistic kid that was not going to make it. When ETs were playing with DNA and trying to develop a higher form of human that was native to this planet, that could maybe hold their consciousness. They had a whole bunch of different evolutions of beings. And we were considered the cast-offs, the castaways. We were considered too dumb and too physical and too slow and too focused on, all the stupid stuff. Drinking, sex, fighting, that kind of thing. And that we have gotten to this point, other people are looking at us now and going, holy cow, they have survived. Look at them now. And they have started looking at what our future is, our destiny. And that is an amazing destiny in which we continue to maintain our physical life and are able to manage the entire physical world that we are in with our consciousness without giving up our status as full physical human beings. That's a whole new breed of being.
Yes.
And that's why we are sort of being watched and helped. I mean, they're always interested in new DNA and what that DNA holds and the promise of that. But we are a whole new kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, really quite wonderful, a quite wonderful destiny for us to look forward to.
I like that idea. And I think, how we're very aware of how easy it is for us to manifest outcomes. And there's no doubt that there is a negative agenda that is continuing to use humanity to manifest these negative outcomes. But what I'm saying is we very much have the skill, the ability, and the knowledge and the wherewithal to use that ability to manifest the outcome that we want ourselves, that is wholesome and holy and powerful and beautiful. Yeah.
It is. It really is. And I think if I think it's not going to be as difficult to get there as people might imagine.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Gosh.
Yeah. I look at where we are now, and I actually see where I want people to be in terms of their consciousness, etc. And that, I think, is a necessary piece of holding that vision.
Yeah. And I think part of that opening up too is to not be afraid of when we hear things like ET or extraterrestrial or inner Earth or somebody who may look or feel different, like you said. We have to acclimatize ourselves to the potentials and the possibilities rather than close ourselves down to them.
Right. Yeah. So let me say something. I've mentioned this a couple of times, that there are others, like 36 other races of beings in, on, and above the planet and around the planet. I think the more I look at what we're dealing with, we are the beneficiary. It's not such a good beneficiary thing of a group of people who want control of the whole planet. And I've said this, in many ways, we are the victims of a takeover effort that has been going on for a very long time. I know how those go. And I look at the way that we behave, the invasions, the colonizing, the destruction of indigenous cultures everywhere. We are the beneficiary of this takeover thinking, which has total disregard for various groups of people. And once the takeover guys got their favorite people in power, then they guided them to destroy every other country's culture and group of people and their language and their dress and their ways of doing business around the entire planet until almost everything has been destroyed. The few people that are maintaining a toehold are the Native Americans, maybe the Navajo. That's it. Maybe there's a few in South America as well. I met a few when I was down there. But everybody else has been co-opted and taught the Western way of doing things, and their culture has been slowly destroyed and their language has been lost. That's deliberate. And what I think we need to learn is how to recognize those people whose intentions are good and who honor others and those who are not. And we have just not stood up to those powers that be, because they are powerful and they have nasty weapons, but we have this amazing consciousness, and we are smart and we are resilient, and it's time for us to use that consciousness, use those smarts, and figure out, how do we reestablish all the gifts of consciousness that are displayed by those people in the inner earth, people that are, zooming around above the earth in saucers, or, slicing through the ocean without losing a beat. There's all kinds of skills and technologies and abilities that we are ready to inherit if we just stand up.
Well, that's
where we're at.
Beautiful note on which to finish, Penny.
Okay.
It's very encouraging, actually, because it's very easy to fall prey to all that negative agenda and to become fearful, because, as we know, that's not 5D. That's not the new Earth. It's not composed of fear.
No.
So,
no, it's not. And there's so much waiting for us. So much good, exciting stuff. So I'm like, come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Good. Okay, Aingeal Rose, are you happy? Because she's been wanting to speak to you about inner Earth for a long time.
Yeah.
This is very good.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Not say much though, but
have you done any exploring, Aingeal?
I have not done any exploring to inner Earth. What's been happening to me lately, just the past few days, is that I feel there's some shift in my consciousness going on, because I'm very aware that it's time to get to know my ET family,
Okay.
And I've been avoiding it all this time. Part of me's been fearful about that, because I don't have such great memories of off-planet beings in the past. But I feel like it's time for me to get to know who my brothers and sisters are, or even where I came from. I'm not even aware of where I came from, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Go looking.
I sense that I came from Andromeda, but I don't really know for sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So
that's something that's well worth checking out.
Yeah, because it's just been recent. Okay, come on now. It's time to do bigger things, time to, expand. So I had mentioned it to Ahonu yesterday. It's like, I feel like we're kind of being asked to come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do bigger, go bigger in some way.
Yeah. So remember the stories about Admiral Byrd?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Go there.
Yeah.
Go there. Wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Let me know what happens.
We will.
I will. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Penny.
All right.
It's been
Thank you very much for this time. And I'm sure we'll come up with something else out of this. Okay.
We will.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's always stuff. There's always
stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You take care. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.